In this video, I'm going to show you how I derive the Bewley archetype from Bewley's diagrams in his book and paper, demonstrating how my so-called Bewley archetype is already in the public domain. It is already, out there. It's not something that anybody can claim as their own should somebody claim that they have already patented the Bewley archetype. The Bewley archetype I ascribe to Bewley for a very good reason, because it's not mine, it's his, and it's not anybody else's. So, buyer beware that you are about to witness the destruction of what you think you own and possess, and could possibly come at me legally for having infringed your possession, as if I made it look like it was my own, which it is not. So I go and I look under a folder called copyright, and it is the wrong folder. Wrong folder. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, it's the wrong folder. So we look under here we go, my private simulator folder, and we look under graphs, and then we look for Bewley. No. No, that's the wrong one. We look for... here we go. So, these are all the various diagrams in Bewley's book and his paper. Here it's from his paper, and these are from his book. This is a section from one of the letters that Eric Dollard had sent me on, let's see, when was it? Here it is. On, whoops. That's not right. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Anyway. Wrong letter. I'm gonna have to correct that. Anywho, he mentions that he read about Bewley back in his high school days. So that's what prompted me to go read Bewley. So here we have, and then you see I've circled certain ones. So let's take this, let's take this one in here. So let's blow up this image. Alright, so we have here a ground plane at the bottom, and we have the transmission line coiled and thus shortened up at the top. Then we have capacitors running along in parallel with that coil, showing that the coil is exhibiting parallel capacitance, but it's also showing shunt capacitance in its relationship to the ground plane. Now, the ground plane is like an echo wall. I take it to be the midline of something like an inkblot test, or an inkblot artwork, actually. You're making the artwork for the inkblot test, and you're creating one by folding the paper down the middle, or I should say down one edge, to create a midline, in which it's the mirror image on the two sides of the midline fold of that paper. And the ground plane is that fold, because anything that happens coming from the transmission line is the causative factor, the ground plane is the reflector, which will bounce that causation back to the transmission line, making a complete path which this diagram only shows 1/2 of. Okay? So the diagram implies another half. Now, it's true the ground plane will absorb energy. In fact, for the most part, it might just do that. But it also will not entirely absorb all of it. It will reflect some of it. And it's that reflection that is important to me, because that's the part I want to use. And I want to discard and forget about the part that dissipates into the earth. So if we fold that down the middle, let's open this up in a in Paint. Okay, so now let's shrink this image down. Okay, to size, and then let's crop. Does this say crop? Okay, let's expand this. Alright, so let's do this. Let's crop a little more. Let's crop right here. Right there. No, actually, first let's copy. Then let's crop. Then let's do this. Sorry. Then let's paste. And then let's rotate. Let's see, we're going to flip it along the horizontal axis. No, that didn't work. Oopsie. Let's try flipping it along. Well, if that didn't work, let's try the vertical. There we go. Alright. And let's do one more to get rid of the horizontal. Yeah, let's really be precise here. There we go. Actually, that's... No, we should have left it the other way. It's tilted slightly for some strange reason. There we go. Alright, let's bring it together. Okay. Now, whoops. There. Now let's expand this, because we're going to do some more flipping. We're going to roll this thing over on its side. So let's take this, and actually let's cut it. This is not big enough. Let's shrink this down a bit and make a square area. Let's make a big square area, because we're going to have to rotate it, so we need lots of room. Alright. So now let's take this and rotate it. Let's see if this works. Rotate. There. So now let's move this. Actually, I don't need the whole thing. Well, anyway, let's move this up to the corner so we can just zoom in on... Okay, so now I have to go get my Bewley archetype. So we go under Graphs, and I want to say this is it, but that's not it. Oh, you know what we have to do? We have to look under here. I thought I had it there. So we look under an older version of harmonics of ring capacitance. This is the little treatise I wrote on, but I changed the graphic, and now I'm going to have to take this out and get rid of it because I have an intuitive hunch that it's incorrect. I should never have made those changes. So let's go fetch the very first one. See? This is the first instance that I used was in this circuit. And you'll notice here is the ground plane. I ground this resistor to the earth, and I have 1/2 over here and 1/2 over here, because this transformer has two coils. It's got one coil on this side and another coil on this side. This coil over here is a transmission line that's going through its parallel capacitance, and then two shunt capacitances that goes to the ground plane. But this coil over here loops around to this side. It's got its parallel capacitor here, its two shunt capacitors, and the same shared ground plane. So this is my archetype that I derive from this. And of course this is not that. Whoops, it's not that either. Darn, where did I put it? Oh, I see. Oh, so let's shrink. Um, let's just shrink this down. Yeah, I'm not going to put it alongside. I'm not going to go bother. I'm lazy. I'm just going to expand it here. Actually, I should have cut it off is what I should have done. Okay, let's see. A little cutting here is in order. Which ones? Right about there. Okay. Now we'll do like that and expand it. Okay. Maybe I should put it alongside it, but so if I drew, let's see. Yeah, I'll do this. I'll draw. Do a little drawing here. Okay, so one other thing, let's see. Take that out. All right. Now when you look at that, oh wait, a few more changes. A few more. Let's clean this up. All right, so, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, okay. So now let's use the brush. And there we go. Oh, actually, we're going to need more room down here. I didn't like that. Let's do it this way. Whoopsies. I slipped. I tell you, that was a slip up. Okay. I'm a little nervous here. All right. Whoopsies. The hand is quicker than the eye. Okay. Now, let me turn off my heater here. Ooh, I'm toasty. Okay. So, we've got two capacitors here. We've got a resistor down the middle that's grounded to the earth. We've got two capacitors here, and these two coils are connected together. So let's put in a core. Here's one core. And here's another core. See how I derived this? It's really quite simple and straightforward. So now, this is now let's make this, imagine if you will, a shared core. It's one and the same core. And this is one coil, and this is the other coil of a transformer. And so when we go to, whoops. When we go to this image, here's the ground plane with the resistor down the middle. The ground plane with the resistor down the middle. And by the way, this is a 1 femto resistor, so I wanted to make it as little as possible so as to show that, you know, it's not really there. It's for the sake of the simulator. See, this is a screenshot from a simulation. when did I do it? 8:31 p.m. on September 21st, 2018. So this was my second simulation. My first one I did 2 modules daisy chained together, and I didn't need to. I realized one module was all I needed to do. So I chopped away one module, and I was left with this one. And let's see. I used a femtovolt from a dead battery to get it going. Anyway, so here's my ground plane resistor in the middle, and my 2 shunt capacitors on either side, top and bottom. Here, here, and here and here. And then I have my 2 parallel capacitors flanking the resistor. Here, 10 microfarads, and here, 10 microfarads. Then I have my two cord coils that here look like they're 2 radio choke coils, but in reality, I loop them around, and they could just as easily be this transformer pair of coils over here. You know, here it loops around, but it could be a transformer pair of coils, or it could be 2 radio choke coils. Either way, it'll work. In my experience with surge-oriented circuitry, you have to have a cord coil at its in this archetype. You can have other kinds of air core coils elsewhere, but in this sub-circuit you have to have a magnetizable, such as iron cord coil, and they don't have to be shared. You know, in the early days, I won't bother to show you, I'll just tell you, I would use a transformer on one side and a transformer on the other side, and I would only use one coil from each transformer. The other coil on each transformer, the leads were bare. They went to nothing. They went to air, to space. I didn't use it. But I found that if I joined and if I took out one transformer and looped around and used just one transformer, both coils, there were 2 different changes. One was to my advantage and one was to my disadvantage. I can't remember what they were. But I liked the change. It looked like an evolutionary growth. You know, the trade-off worked out, I think, best in my favor, and so I stuck with this habitually, and I never gave a second thought to using 2 separate transformers, one coil from each. Now, I sent an email to Paul Falstad, the author of this simulator that I use a lot for the most part, and I asked him, based on my observation, I deduced that his singular inductors were air core, modeled after air core coils, and his transformers were modeled after iron or magnetizable cord coils. And he said, yes, that's correct. And so my observation was correct. My deduction from my observation was correct. So because in my experience, I always had to use transformer coils in the cord, in the core subcircuit, in the subcircuit that has to do with the Eric Dollard's analog computer archetype, which he got from Bewley. But he took out two capacitors. He took out this one and this one. And these 2 are the ones that store the energy over time, while these up here and down below help connect these 2 on the side to promote the growth of the surge. You don't need them necessarily, but they do help a lot, and they help so much that that's why I came up with what I call Bewley's archetype, which is not the same as Eric Dollard's analog computer, but it's an improvement, a vast improvement. Now, Eric Dollard shorts out these 2 coils, these 2 radio choke coils, and they're already shorted out here across the span, in a sense, but not really. They're connected together, actually. They're not shorted. So he goes further and shorts them across their, here, and I don't do that. So that's another change he made. Bewley's image doesn't show a shorting across. Let's see if I can find the right one. It doesn't show a short from here to here, you know, because that's, or here to here and back up. In other words, a line short to ground that would go back up, you know, basically. It would infer coming back up. It doesn't show any short. So he made some changes by putting in a short to ground from the transmission line and by taking out these parallel capacitances that Bewley had included and just leaving the shunt capacitance. So, because he does use that the image I've seen him draw, actually, the other part of this letter, I don't know why I got this page and not, it's the wrong page, because he drew it. Let's see if I can find where I put it. Oh, is it in here? No, I didn't put it in here. Okay, all right, let's see. Correspondence, would it, maybe it's here. Okay, letter from Eric. Eric's letter of 5th of April, no. Standing waves, oh, this is my letter to him. No, that won't work. No, I need the originals, don't I? Oh, I don't have it on my computer, do I? Darn. That's too bad. I could have shown you that he drew. Where are we here? He drew this without the transmission line, just the parallel capacitors and the shunt capacitors, and then the ground plane. And then he had another version in which he had another row of parallel capacitances instead of the ground plane. So he had a circle of 4 capacitances. So in a sense, he's already partly given us the Bewley archetype. You know, he's given us the ring, the capacitant ring. He's already given it to us, just without this. And in a sense, he's given us this Bewley archetype with his analog computer. And in a sense, he's given us this archetype what was I going to say? Basically, he's given us parts to the whole, and always different parts. And so I went along and simply derived the full Monty, you know, the full scope of this thing. I derived it. From here, I decided from my simulation further that I didn't need this ground plane, and I took it out, and I took out because these are excess, you know, 2 alongside each other without a ground plane. There's no point anymore. So I took out one of each, and I was left with a singular capacitor instead of 2 alongside each other. Because, you know, it amounts to the same thing, thematically speaking, archetypically speaking. So this is all Bewley. This is all Bewley. It doesn't belong to anybody who wants to claim it for their own. Because Bewley copyrighted it when he printed it. Oh, this doesn't have a date, does it? All right. This is his paper. The book was published in 1933. I thought it was 31. Okay, 1933. So by Chapman and Hall in London, by John Wiley and Sons Incorporated. Oh, in New York, I see. One place in New York and co-published in London by Chapman and Hall Limited in 1933. A dual or double publication by the General Electric Company. So if anybody, oh, if anybody holds rights to this thing, it's the General Electric Company. That's right. How about that? But it's been in the public domain for, how long is that? 1933? 2018 minus 1933. 85 years. Don't you think the copyright would run out by now? I mean, that's why we have this book on archive.org. It's in the public domain at this point. It's common holding. You know, it doesn't belong to anybody. So I'm going to have to change this in my treatment of this subject on harmonics of ring capacitance. But in any case, so there you have it. My protection is that it's in the public domain, and General Electric Company does not possess it or own it anymore. It's we all own it, and it's for the good of all of us. So I hope you enjoyed this little video in defense of my use of Bewley material.